Good day and welcome. Today is January 14th, 2026. I'm Derek Fildebrandt, publisher of the Western Standard, and you're watching The Pipeline. Joined by our usual lineup of former Western Standard opinion editor Nigel Hannaford.
Great to see you all.
Senior Alberta columnist Corey Morgan.
Indeed.
And an OG Pipeline member, we think probably permanently. We'll see how he likes it. But bringing Dave Naylor back to the Pipeline. Dave, I remember when, this was just a tiny little wee baby company, and we'd be doing this from our living rooms, just kind of staring at the laptop on kind of a Zoom thing. The Pipeline was you and me, and sometimes Corey. Corey, were you an OG Pipeline?
Yeah, because it would be those weird ones where you had to clip out the screen to get the faces in for posts. It was very. I think they're still on YouTube if somebody really wants to scroll
they're
back.
rough. They are rough. But Dave, welcome back to the Pipeline.
Good to be back as the eye candy of the panel.
Yeah,
Well, you're our sunshine girl.
looking pretty as
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the second petition to trigger a referendum on Alberta independence has begun. The first petition on Alberta independence was launched by anti-independence federalists until they realized that launching a referendum on staying in Canada also means that people can vote no and therefore leave. And then they panicked and pleaded not to have a referendum on that. So that kind of cleared the way after wasting everyone's time and effort and money. Cleared the way now for the pro-independence side to collect their signatures, and it's off to a pretty strong start. We'll be talking about that. Will Mark Carney pivot to China as the United States becomes more assertive and dominant in its hemisphere and bellicose, some might say? Mark Carney is on his way to China. China is made quite explicit that Canada should pivot away from the United States and join Pax China. I'm sure that will not result in the immediate kidnapping in an overnight operation by Delta Force of Mark Carney, and he'll get to show up for some kind of charges at New York State Court. First, we're going to start with great story. It's been a long time coming, but the federal government has lost its appeal with the Federal Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner for an accessed information request to get the report on these mass graves from the Kamloops Holocaust, the genocide that took place there, with the mass graves where people were just slaughtered by thousands or hundreds or whatever the story is. Some intrepid reporter, I'm not sure who. Do we know which? Who
Blackhawks.
Of course, it's Blackhawks. Those dastardly buggers. They filed an access to information request, and Ottawa said, "No, you can't have a report on this genocide. You just need to accept it." Dave, why don't you fill it in a little from there?
Yeah, well, if you remember when the local band, who's got an unpronounceable name, said the Kamloops band, we'll call them, said they had found the graves of 215 children. The country collectively lost its mind. We lowered flags, and Justin Trudeau was pictured with teddy bears. The band was given $12 million to go ahead and do something to make the thing real or not. And it turns out that one of the catches on that 12 million was they had to file reports as to what they've done with it. And that's the information that Blacklock's first asked for. And there's 576 pages, and the Fed said, no, we're not giving it to you. So Blacklock's then went to the Information Commissioner, appealed, and now the information officer has ordered it released within the next month. So will they release it, I guess, or will they maybe go up to a higher court? They fought court battles to keep papers hidden before, and they may do it again. But I think, Corey, you were one of the first media people to speak out loud that it's a hoax.
I think so. I mean, it really was, and at first I was horrified like everybody else. People ask why I get so ticked off about this. Part of it was when I first saw the reports, I thought, oh my Lord, they've murdered children in a school. This is awful. I mean, this is a black mark on Canadian history. Let's rectify this, deal with this. And I don't know, a month, maybe 2 months in, as it was getting more evident that they're stalling any further investigation. I mean, anything else where you got 215 buried children, you're going to exhume, you're going to have criminal investigation. And finally enough, like, okay, this stinks. And more, though, we saw some major, media members and others finally, but the backlash you would get initially for daring to question it was unreal. And now it's at a point, I think everybody kind of realizes there's nothing there, and now the government's trying to cover it up.
We gotta insert this clip. You remember the Jim Carrey 90s movie Liar Liar? He's a lawyer. He can't lie for a day. And at one point he just says, I object.
Your Honor, I object.
And why is that, Mr. Reed?
Because it's devastating to my case.
Overruled.
I feel like that's what's here right now. People are saying, I object. Show us the evidence. Show us the evidence. And Ottawa says, I object. And we say, why? Because it'll show it's a lie. I was like you, Corey. I took this as like, I can't believe this happened in Canada. I mean, no country's perfect. No country's been all cooperation and getting along its entire history. But this is a real black stain, if true.
Beyond the pale.
Yeah. Let's see. And we expect basic due process. We're going to collect some evidence. How many bodies have been found in any of these mass graves? Not one so far. Not one. And Nigel, the feds, I don't know, what is it? I mean, the obvious thing is they're, I think, very worried that it's going to show, no, there are no bodies. But I don't know. Am I being a little too out of left field and supposing that just possibly this band didn't, how wild a speculation is it that maybe they spent some of the money on things that have little to do with actually getting some evidence?
So that, of course, would justify the request for the documents these are progress reports, you see, that they're supposed to file as the condition of getting this money advanced to them. So what you see, I gather, if you go, I haven't been down to Kamloops to take a look, but people who have say it's all fenced off and sacred ground, and don't even look at it. Never mind try to excavate in there or think anything like that. Look, there's a bigger game going on here, a much bigger game. I stuck my neck out a couple of years ago when I was challenged on the point. I said, if you show me the evidence, I will say that yes, I will say what the evidence indicates. But right now we have no evidence. And therefore, I'm not prepared to say that this all happened just as described. So why do they hang on to the narrative? Well, look, let's be honest about it. There's a move to give Canada back to Indigenous people at the moment. Now, most people will say, that's ridiculous. We're not going to do that. But if they're made to feel guilty, they might. And you can see it at work in BC right now with the things that Mr. Eby has authorized. You can see it with the narrative that is infecting the BC Supreme Court as it makes its judgments on things like the Cowichan case. And, if everybody, and by the way, it's just not white people and people descended from white people who are affected by this. Everybody who has come into this country, whether they came from India or Pakistan or the Middle East, all now have an interest in the outcome, and the outcome depends ultimately on whether you can convince the rest of Canada that a terrible thing was done, and in recompense you have to do other things which will cost you money and could even alter the character of the country. So this is why this narrative is so important. This is why they don't want to give you the information, because if you blow the narrative up, that whole process is set back years.
I think you're right, and it feeds into the agenda around delegitimizing Canada for Indigenous rights and Indigenous land back claims, all these things. But I think it also fits into the broader agenda of white guilt complex that has afflicted Western societies since the end of the Second World War, some more than others, but it has afflicted everyone. And this feeds into it more deeply, that we need to be collectively guilty, collectively ashamed of who we are. No one alive did anything, but we need to be collectively guilty of our civilization, of our ancestors, of our nations, of our people.
Well, that's exactly right.
That's what this is about.
That's the left-wing approach to changing the world, is to move from a point of where everybody is accountable for their own actions to where groups of people are accountable for actions of their ancestors.
I'm not sure just the left is responsible here. It's the left driving it, but the right allows it to succeed when it acquiesces to it. Yeah. And you saw this with the BC Conservatives trying to kick out people for questioning this. That's part of the split that went on there. You see a real muzzle put around federal Conservative MPs around this, because even though those in power in the Conservative movement, Conservative parties, they know this is bullshit, they still are afraid to question this because someone's going to call them racist on Twitter. And so they silence themselves. So it's the left driving this, but I think it's the right that's actually responsible for making it a kind of metapolitical consensus when they acquiesce to it.
Well, absolutely. It's time the right has got to name it and shame it.
Well, if this is blown up, though, this will embolden people to start questioning, because this is the first domino. If this is proven to be a hoax, if the evidence is showing this never happened, the bodies aren't there, we've got that whole Truth and Reconciliation report with a lot of questionable allegations in there, too. And I think people will now say, well, if that was BS, we should be entitled to maybe look a little more closely at some of the claims that were made throughout all of this, because what they did with that, people are forgetting two things that were problematic. One, of course, they took all oral history at stock value as if it was fact without evidence.
And there was no cross-examination.
No, and there was actually a scale of compensation for victims. So they were very incentivized to make it out that they suffered the most horrible possible things, which some, I don't doubt, were probably true. But now we will have, I think people say, well, I think I want to hear a little more, because there's a whole lot of billions that got put out based on this. When we can see a fraud being as large as that level, I think it's not unfair to now scrutinize some of the other claims, and they're terrified of it.
No, and you're right. It is the business of being a victim. And this band got $12 million bucks. We don't know what they did with it.
Well, wasn't there some, was it this band or a different band where they found a ton of money was spent on communications consultants?
Yeah, no, that was this.
These guys,
This was the same guys.
So the $12 million, by the way, Dave, if memory serves me right, is part of a $300 million program.
Yes, correct.
So there's a lot
for all of the rest.
And it's just, if only there was a way to solve it, right? You and I could go and spend an afternoon digging, and we'd solve the whole thing.
Yeah, well, we're in pretty poor shape.
We could hire a couple.
But yes, it is. It really is that simple. That's what's annoying with this. You don't need some
The evidence is right.
massive technology. You have exhume a grave. It's done a lot, and
And
they
what-
won't do it.
Why hasn't the RCMP gone in? Because if there's 215 dead children, that's a crime.
They were specifically told to stay out of it.
Well,
Right,
remember
right,
how much
right.
there was a huge controversy. It's one reason for the way the last Manitoba election went. There was, I think, one, maybe two, but I think one missing body from an Indigenous person.
Two was in the Winnipeg.
Two in the Winnipeg.
Two in the Winnipeg's landfill. And, I mean, it was wildly uneconomical. They already knew what happened to them. But it became a rallying point for people. It was a political issue. And so huge amounts of money were spent to find and exhume these missing bodies. Okay, but we knew there were bodies there. This was a murder, and we knew the bodies were there. And we spent Manitoba taxpayers spent an incredible sum of money to get those bodies.
It's like $180 million, wasn't it?
It was something incredible.
Yeah,
It was an incredible amount of money to find some bodies, and I don't want to be callous, but it was a questionable decision. But either way, the decision was made to spend a huge amount of money to find these bodies because we had to get the truth and put these people to rest. Why won't we do it here, where there should be theoretically mass graves, and it's incredibly cheap to do it?
Well, that exposes another part of the hoax. In Winnipeg, there were family members and records of the two missing women and everything. With these 200 alleged children who were buried at Kamloops, there's no cousins, brothers, mothers, grandparents, sons. There's no record of any children that are even supposed to be there. So there's no advocate saying, hey, I want my brother to be exhumed so we can return them to the home and properly buried respectfully and all that. It's not there. That's another missing part of this puzzle. Where did these mystifying 215 children come from? And again, that's why they just don't want these questions asked.
And we could all be locked up if we're even talking about this.
Legalize this.
That's their
discussion.
answer.
Residential school denialism law. We could all be thrown in the slammer.
Denialism, where this is a heinous crime to question, to ask any questions, to demand any evidence. Their only answer to this is not to provide the extremely easy to provide evidence, is to propose jailing anyone who questions it.
Well, I hate to say it, but well, that's the way I do things. Look, if they thought there were bodies down there, they would dig up 3 and they'd have them touring across the country in glass-covered caskets and with the grievance industry showing why they need even more money. They would want to highlight that there really are victims down there. They know there aren't any as much as anybody else does.
We certainly have yet to present the evidence.
Or even look.
Yes. So
In the end, I mean, this could go either way, but I think in the end, this is going to do a lot more harm to the grievance industry than it ever did. Well, they got their pound of flesh, they got the flag forward. They massively have overplayed their hand here, and they took advantage of everyone's goodwill and innate sense of justice to try and shame us for something that just does not appear to have happened.
just to your point there, Corey, the fact that the federal government wants to make it a criminal offense, they are now in the business of controlling speech. What sort of government has evolved in this country? Because that would not have happened even under a previous liberal government. There is
Chin would have never done so.
there is a motivation for control and complete control.
No, we've had restrictions on free speech for a long time.
Not so
But no-
bold to the point
I
of
thought you were the point of saying if you think this and say it out loud, we're going to send you to jail. They might have said we'll send you to the Human Rights Commission and it'll cost you your retirement plan. But
No, we have. I mean, this might be another step in it, but we have had.
what are you thinking of? Which would be comparable?
Well, I mean, we've had like the Earth Sundles of the world and these guys, and they're generally considered cranks and whatever, but they did time for saying things that were not allowed to be said. Whatever their opinion, that we have criminalized speech before beyond defamation or advocate. I'm always fine with defamation or advocating harm, like say, I think someone should go out and kill Corey, or everyone should go out and kill UK citizens.
It's a bigger discussion. Yeah, Zundel was odious, and even with what I think, it shouldn't have been illegal for the nutcase to said the crap he said.
And so we set the precedent there. So we're living in that.
The other difference too, though, was he was denying something that we had a whole whack of evidence supposed
Sure,
to really happen.
But if something is solid, you don't need to criminalize the questioning of it, even if they're right or wrong. That's not the point. The point is, if you criminalize it, you actually, in my view, legitimize questioning it.
Well, it makes the conspiracy theorists even more set off when, well, what are you trying to hide this?
Exactly. My point is that we have set the precedent. We did it on that, and now there's enough legal precedent in Canada. There's enough case law that this would totally stand up in court. Doesn't matter that it's bullshit. It would stand up in court because we have enough legal precedent here to say no. It's fine to criminalize.
It would be interesting if somebody got charged, though. And I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but typically these things then it would go to discovery. And because you're denying something, well, I mean, I think, well, who knows? I mean, if they're really out to get you, who knows how the courts will treat you? But theoretically, you should say, well, then we need to discover evidence. That means digging a darn hole and see if I'm actually denying something that happened or not.
I'm not sure because the courts have upheld the laws that you can't say something that could just cause
Hurt feelings.
Hurt feelings that this could hurt an identifiable group, etc. And the truth around it, if I said something nasty about Somalis, true or not, in the aggregate, obviously not everyone, but if I said something nasty about Somalis in the aggregate, even if true, that's an identifiable group that I have said some nasty things about. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. That gets upheld in Canadian law. So we could dig all the holes we want. Discovery's not going to really matter in that sense. You're doing the time.
Zundel, by the way, was jailed in Germany, not in Canada. We deported him.
Yeah. But
Okay.
So when we're talking about
okay.
the Canadian government response.
Well, they're even more zealous in allowing speech. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, that's a good correction there. Thank you. All right. Move on to something more cheery. Make China great again. So, Nigel, you wanted to talk about this one. I mean, the whole world has pivoted to China to some extent ever since it joined the World Trade Organization. It's an indispensable economic partner in the world now. Can't be ignored. Trump has been rather bellicose with Canada. Carney actually should be thanking him. The way Trump talked about annexing Canada, he would have never been prime minister. Probably would have suffered the same fate as J.B. Singh. But
there's time.
Pardon?
There's time.
Yeah. But he's in China, I think, right now.
Mm-hmm.
And the Chinese have been quite explicit that Canada should be pivoting away from the States towards China, even if it were to happen to some extent. I doubt it would ever be very explicit because Carney would get a midnight free helicopter ride for Delta Force pretty quickly, I think. If the United States won't tolerate Maduro across the Gulf in Venezuela, there's a 0% chance they would tolerate it from Canada. But Carney does have a very long history with China. He seems pretty China friendly. I don't know. Your take?
So my take on it is actually there's a lot of questions that, and you've hit on a number of them there, but Trump is after Greenland because he feels he needs it for national security.
No, he doesn't. They already have all the military they want. That's what he says. That's not why he wants it.
That's
not why he actually wants it.
So, Derek, what nobody is talking about is that you've got a strait of water between Greenland and Canada.
To which America is already there in Greenland.
And they could, if they had Greenland in possession, they could actually say, well, that's an internal waterway, and now we can control it. There's more than one reason.
But Denmark can do that on America's behalf.
That's not. But the relevance of that to China is if he establishes this sort of complete American control over that northern space, and then you've got this Canadian thing that happens with China. You've got your enemy right in you. We're busily supporting China and bringing in the goods. I mean, I honestly don't think that Delta Force will be
get us militarily. I think they got us where they.
I don't think we'll see Delta Force coming calling, but you can see that if we get too close to China, the Yanks aren't going to like it. And other people can speculate what they would do. What is the American reaction going to be to us Canadians replenishing the oil that the Chinese have just lost from Venezuela? They're not going to like it. Don't know what they'll do, but that is a negative. Mr. Carney, all he wants is trade alternatives. But what the Chinese want is to drive a very thick wedge between Canada and the United States. That's not necessarily in our interests because the Chinese are not the nice guys in the world. We may not like being under American domination, but at least they speak English. We do not want to be under Chinese domination, and I fear that Mr. Carney, in his enthusiasm to show economic progress and have something to wave under the nose of the Canadian voting public, is going to give away too much too quick. What exactly will the Americans do about it? You'll know that you'll know there's something going on if he comes back from China and within a couple of weeks we've got authorization for a pipeline and you've got to go now and do it right away. That will tell you a lot about who agreed to what and under what conditions. Be fine for us, but not for anybody else.
I think that's one of the key things to look at. This might be what, if a pipeline is going to get built to the West Coast, it could stem largely from this meeting. American analysts and commentators, for the first time really ever, at least in a long time, are talking very seriously about Canada in the fallout of Venezuela. A lot of them have started to connect to that. Well, what does it really mean? Trump's excuse for wanting Greenland to station the military there is about as truthful as they wanted Maduro because of drugs. It had nothing to do with drugs, and the United States military is already in Greenland. These are the prima facie public reasons given for these things, but it's much more basic than that. But a lot of Americans have started to connect the dots that by getting Venezuelan heavy sour oil back in production, and that'll take some time, but getting it back in production, that is going to put massive pressure on Canada and specifically Alberta. This is directly eating our lunch. It's going to put downward pressure on prices that are already at a discount. It puts the Americans in a more powerful position in demanding price points from us, that our oil is going to go even cheaper than it is right now. And so building a pipeline to the West Coast, which should have been obvious for an extremely long time to everybody, becomes more critical now than ever. I guess my worry, Dave, is Trump is somehow could become an obstacle to building a pipeline to the West Coast, because that negates the advantage they get by taking Venezuela, putting its oil back in play.
Yeah, well, Trump made it clear in Detroit yesterday. He was touring a Ford plant, and he was asked about the North American-Mexico free trade deal, and he says doesn't need it anymore. He says he needs nothing from Canada. Doesn't want our cars, doesn't want our lumber, doesn't want our aluminum. So he's put Canada on notice that we do need to go looking for new markets. I don't think that there's any doubt about that. But I agree 100% with Nigel. If Carney gets all buddy-buddy with Chairman Xi, it will upset Trump. What he will do, I mean, who knows what that guy is thinking, right? It's trying to predict him is a mug's game. But he won't be happy. There's no doubt about that.
There's an English language newspaper published in Beijing. It's effectively an arm of the Chinese propaganda ministry. It's the China Daily, but what they often do is, if there's something coming up, a visit, they publish an editorial, and it's an informal way for the government to say what they expect to get out of it. So, Mr. Carney's on his way in, and what is the China Daily editorial talking about? It starts off with a polite recognition that Mr. Carney has already made some efforts to develop a good relationship with China. It takes note of the troubles that we've had, and blames Canada for looking around for things to complain about. And obviously, why would we complain about Chinese interference? Get over it. And so it's and it has made it known in the past, and here I'm quoting that it wants to drop its U.S.-inspired tariffs on Chinese steel, aluminum, and electric vehicles before removing its retaliatory duties on Canadian agriculture and seafood products. So you want to sell canola to China, let us export our Chinese electric cars into your marketplace. So this is all, you can get a very good idea about what the Chinese hope to get out of this, and it all looks like a close trade relationship leading to political domination. That is what Trump is going to reject, but Canadians should also be looking this arrangement over very carefully. You may not like American domination, you won't like Chinese domination either.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there is, look, we're not a great power, so we have to play the great power game between them. We're very obvious. We're in the American sphere, but we're hyper inside the American sphere of influence. A lot of Canadians might not like to hear it, but guess what? Culturally, most Canadians are Americans. They're political Canadians, but they're culturally Americans. We watch American TV, we listen to American music, we eat American food, we drive American cars. You can't distinguish someone from Saskatchewan and Minnesota, really, well, other than their license plate. That's about the only marker. But we have to play the game a bit. We've got these tariffs against Chinese electric vehicles to protect our non-existent EV industry. The problem is that the feds and Ontario have sunk a gargantuan amount of money into subsidizing these non-industries. And so to protect those nascent industries, they put a protective tariff wall around it. Okay, fine, but then there's obvious consequences to that, and that comes to seafood exports and canola. Luckily for most Liberals, West Coast fishermen vote Conservative, and so do canola farmers. This is not affecting Liberal voters all that directly, at least on the negative side. Maybe it helps them on the positive side. So I think he should do a deal there. We should do a trade deal with China. It's not a bad thing to do, but we need to be leery of it because China obviously has a very clear intention of trying to drive a wedge between us and the States. And Trump's rhetoric has facilitated that quite helpfully to the Chinese interests. But as he's made clear, you can talk to whoever you want, but if you actually get in bed with the Chinese, you're getting a free helicopter ride.
You know, Derek, the one thing that nobody bothers to think about is that in 3 years, less than, Donald Trump will no longer be president of the United States. And you can almost guarantee that things will change at that point, because I cannot think of another U.S. politician who has the capacity to do what Trump does, the way he does it, and pull it off.
I don't think that's a given, Nigel. You know what? He's mused about it.
He's too old.
He'll be 85.
That's
They're better shape than Biden. Or, he could put Mini-Me in there. What's his name? Vance. Vance is
Vance is not. He's a different kind of cat. Yeah. So maybe we shouldn't sign a 5-year deal with China. Maybe we should just make it for like about 2.5 and see how things go in 2020.
I don't know. This was like a win-win to me. We're not protecting any real industry with the EVs. It's a fake industry that is just purely from subsidies anyway. So, like, what are we protecting? We're protecting nothing, and all we're doing is getting tariffs put against our goods that are real and hugely important to our economy.
It's as was talked about kind of from the start, though. If we see dirt actually start to move between here and BC to get a pipe, even if it's going, there's heavy oil refiners in India that would be thrilled to get our product. But Mark Carney also yesterday went out and met with the First Nations lobby group and said, don't worry, we won't do it without your permission. So that seems to be dead in the water either. Mr. Dithers II, that's another thing with Carney. He talks a great game, but he's never committed to a damn thing in a whole year in office yet. He just talks and talks and talks and talks. So we'll see. We'll see what his attitude is when he comes back. But something's got to happen eventually.
Okay. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Or not. Well, speaking of shifting allegiances, let's talk about the Alberta independence referendum sort of kicking off here. So, yeah, Corey, we had Fabio there do his petition, and then they get the signatures. Good. That's a lot. That's a big task.
Good accomplished.
So credit where it's due. But credit where it's also due, where they handed this thing in and realized, oh my God, this will trigger an independence referendum. What do you mean a citizens initiated referendum will actually generate a referendum? So they essentially kiboshed their own thing after handing it in. All they managed to do was waste their own time and effort. But now it's the opportunity of the pro-independence side, organized by the Alberta Prosperity Project here. And they just kind of kicked off the signing now.
Yeah, so to give it a little more background, it looks like there was a bit of a battle between the government and the electoral officer, too. I don't think the electoral officer was really keen on the idea of an independence referendum. Mm-hmm. He used the past legislation, tossed it to a judge. Right when the judge ruled saying they couldn't hold such a referendum, they put out Bill 14 and said, okay, fine, we're changing the legislation. And the electoral officer actually threw up his hands. I was talking to Mitch Sylvester. It really caught them by surprise. It said, fine, here it goes. It's approved. January 2nd, you can start getting your stuff together. So they're scrambling like, holy cow, we were thinking, it's going to be another month, or everything else is so slow. So this is on the go. And
so they got till what? May 2nd?
May 6th, I believe.
May 6th.
So now
how many signatures?
177,000. Realistically, some are going to be declined. They have to get about over 200,000 if it's going to be clearing the hurdles. And their goal, I think, is to beat Fabio and get maybe over 500,000. We'll see. They got 4 months to work on it. But at least now that they've got something to work on, they've got, their meetings, they've been holding them for months and months and months, but now they're holding them. And I was a guest speaker at one of them on the weekend in Calgary. And people probably saw those pictures on social media. I've never seen anything like it. It was full an hour before we were set to start speaking.
Where was it? These are tiny little places.
Queensland Community Center down in South Calgary. So the hall was full almost an hour before we started speaking. There was a guy, fire code. We couldn't let anybody else in. So everybody else was going just to at least sign the petition. And when we finished 2 hours later and I went outside, people were still sneaking for blocks in the night. And those are the pictures you're seeing in the snow. And that's happening everywhere. It's happening in smaller towns, Bicycle, Didsbury, everywhere these guys hold a meeting. people are coming out and just overwhelming it. The eagerness to sign this petition. I mean, this is the honeymoon phase. It's the first week, it'll probably cool down a bit, but there's really something unusual taking place. It caught them off guard, caught me off guard. The fruits, I think, of all their work for months and months has finally gotten there. They got something tangible to work on, and the people are coming out. And the other thing that's interesting was not only did thousands come out to sign the petition, but of them, hundreds signed up to be volunteers for the campaign. And we're in for a hell of a year. That's all I could say. It's going to be something else.
Yeah, it's and then we'll have an actual campaign. I don't know when the vote will be held. I mean, governments like to hold them in the fall. Americans have it in early November, but their weather's a bit more forgiving for it. So our elections tend to be, I hate these things. These things are always on like my birthday. It's like mid-October they pick. And like, so every second birthday, all my political friends can't be with me because it's a friggin' election. So, I'd say it's a good bet. We'd be looking at an October or November.
Follow the good money is on this, yeah.
Yeah, it's I've been talking to some American contacts of mine, and they're just shocked. They're shocked now. They're all under the delusion that like, oh yeah, this is Albertans all clamoring to be the 51st state. Sorry guys, it's not. There's a few, but that's a pretty small fraction of things. Of course, if Alberta did achieve independence, would that be an option on the menu to consider? Oh, well, yeah. So
later,
yeah. Get back to me. We got bigger things to do right now. But it's happening. Almost certainly, we're going to have a vote on independence in Alberta. The polls do not favor the yes side right now. If I was going to bet right now, we'd probably get 40%, after campaign. But campaigns matter. I mean,
there's a lot of time to move that needle between now and October.
When the Quebec government called the referendum that it held in 1995, independent support there was pretty comparable to where it is right here, right now. It was kind of mid-30s, a significant minority, but not there yet. And they got all the way up to 49.9. And, if you ask the guys who were on the yes side, they think pretty strongly the Feds cheated, and I wouldn't put that past them. And it wouldn't take a lot of cheating to make the difference in that one. Campaigns matter. I think it's...
Who's going to lead the campaign for the Independence Party? Right,
that's party or side?
Side.
Because there's like 4 independent parties.
For like who's going to be the chief spokesman for the independence group? That's the one thing you're missing right now.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be Jeff Rath, or if it is, you're going to fail. They need to come up with, as does the other side, who's going to be Captain Canada.
Well, Jason Kenney seems to want the job.
Yeah. Jason Kenney wants the job, and Danielle Smith says she will not have the job. She will sit. You talked about those 2 polls, Derek. Widely ranging numbers. One had support as low as 17%, which I didn't agree with. Yeah. The other one was around 35%, which I think is probably more closer to the truth. But it's going to be a fun campaign.
Yeah, there is no Lucien Bouchard right now, or personable person. That is a missing factor. But there are some months. I think the movement can get along until the end of this petitioning portion, without having a distinguished individual sort of speaking for them. But there will need to be a focal point. And I really don't have a name jumping in mind.
No, well, and like in the Quebec case, you had the PQ and you had the BQ providing a pool of politicians who are experienced in this kind of thing. This is a naturally political position, some with political experience. The federal conservative, how do you be a member of the federal Conservative Party of Canada and then also lead an independence referendum? But that's pretty hard to square. The United Conservative Party, I mean, it's a little less hard, but it's not explicitly an independence party, even if a clear majority of its members support independence and its voters support independence. So we lack these natural pools from which a natural leader can emerge, the way you had with René Lévesque or Parizeau in the PQ, with Lucien Bouchard in the BQ. I don't know. Where does this leader come from?
Yes, but I don't have an answer.
That is the question of the moment. If I had to go out on a limb, I wouldn't name any names, but I would be looking for among people who have not had anything public to say yet, but who have a lot of money and an interest in the outcome. And they will arrive, and they will be the promised leader for a period of the when it matters.
But again, it could be
Anybody we've heard of
it
yet.
could be very fractious, right? Because you could have a lot of the independent supporters say, "Well, I don't really like that person."
There's no
You know,
structure. That's
Are you going to have a leadership?
Yeah,
Maybe a leadership
PQ for a strong
convention. I mean,
it's all uncharted ground. We've never had a referendum in Alberta before either. So this could blow up disastrously, or somebody might arise that we never anticipated, and this could snowball. Was that
Larry Heather.
Oh, God.
oh,
That's what we're talking about, is somebody coming out of nowhere and reaping the harvest
He's
of
the-
all the other people.
He's not the leader we deserve, but he's the hero we need.
Harry Leather. That was
Harry
still the best Twitter account.
That was in his shift life. That was a great parody account. Yeah, I think that's the big issue. Jeff Rath seems more intent on fighting with other people that he agrees with on 99.9% of issues.
He makes me look agreeable, for crying
It
out.
really does. You play Crankmore on TV, but in real life, you're actually fairly agreeable.
Undercut his whole.
Yeah, you do have a shtick as
It's a stick.
we all play assholes on TV. Corey, Nigel's actually a nice guy, but the independence movement's always been notoriously fractious. That's why there's like 4 independence parties. They're independence minded in more than one sense. But I mean, we've just kind of got the cranks will never take a back seat, but like they really, you can tell for who this is genuinely about the movement, and then for those who it's like this is an opportunity to finally be listened to for once in your life, and there's a lot of ego in there. I'd wrap with this. Jason Kenney, I think Monday, was tweeting like, "Here's 2 guys who disagree on the status of First Nations treaties after independence. These guys are internally incoherent, a bunch of idiots." And to which I responded, it's like, yes, there is internal disagreement on issues, as there has been in every single political coalition that has ever existed in the history of the world. Your side, the Federalist side, you share a side with Thomas Lukaszuk. You share a side with Rachel Notley, with Justin Trudeau.
Head itchy.
Nenshi. You tell me you guys don't have internal contradictions? But for some reason that gets kind of paved over. That's seen as more natural. Of course the Federalists disagree about everything, and that's normal, but it's the nationalists. If they disagree on some vague point of case law about the status of native treaties post-independence, then everything's chaos.
If the people who want the United Canada want to start playing the game smartly, they should get people like Senator Paula Simons to just back off.
a little bit, yeah.
What she said, what did you have here, Dave? In a few breaths, she painted the whole Alberta independence move as xenophobic, racist, misogynist, anti-woman, transphobic, and homophobic.
She filled the whole bingo.
Sounds like Corey, doesn't it?
I mean, that's just a list of my friends.
I can't even pronounce misogynist most of it.
This is you go around criticizing Alberta and Alberta people as all of those things. The reaction is not going to be, "Oh shucks, I guess you're right." It's going to be, "Who the hell are you?"
Well, she's mimicking Trudeau here. Says, they're racists, they're sexists, they deny the science.
So
You're not winning people over.
you're not absolutely. So
Also, she's living in a world where these words used to have power.
mhm.
These words have lost their power now. You can call me any ism or ist in the world. I don't even deny it anymore. Because to deny it is to still give it power.
Yeah.
You just say, I don't care. And we don't care. People are sick of this shit.
That's absolutely right.
Okay. Well, that was a fun one to wrap on, I guess. All right. Now that you've read off Corey's resume.
Are you ruling yourself out?
Oh, absolutely. Not a chance. No. Not where I'm looking.
No, he's this Bengali character in the
background.
guy controlling the strings.
Okay, let's give our first parting shot to Dave, since Dave actually never really had a parting shot, because that's kind of a newer feature of the pipeline.
It is. My parting shot will be on Ambassador Sears. He was the final ambassador Canada had to Afghanistan, and he cowardly fled Kabul in a half-empty plane, leaving hundreds and hundreds of Canadians behind. He has finally admitted after several years that it wasn't his best moment.
It's our own captain of the Costa Concordia.
Exactly.
All right, Corey.
Real quick with that, for people who know cartoons, Scott Adams, who used to do Dilbert, passed away from prostate cancer a couple of days ago. But who I'm shooting at wasn't him, though his cartoon was great. Was the Associated Press, who put out the notice of it, said Scott Adams of Dilbert died. By the way, right in the headline, he was canceled and shut down because he'd said racist things on X. You couldn't even just announce the man passed without carrying on posthumously your cancel culture because he said something off color on X.
Oh, I thought they meant it as a compliment.
Yeah, so there you go. So maybe it's certainly powerless against Mr. Adams now. Anyways, either way, to the person who wrote the headline, go to hell.
Nigel?
Yeah, so Dave, I was actually going to comment on that story you had about 105,000 Canadians went out of the country to receive medical treatment. That's a lot of money. Just getting wherever they went is a lot of money, and then they're paying for treatment. I love Ralph Klein, but Ralph Klein so blew it 25 years ago with Bill 11. Instead of banning private medicine in Alberta, they should have said, come to Alberta, build your hospital here, we'll give you business. And people, instead of going to Jordan or any of the other popular medical tourism sites, they'd be coming to Alberta, and Albertans would be getting the benefit of it. This whole thing that, if you listen to the radio right now, the doctors and the nurses are panning the government all the time. It's pure rubbish. But this should never have happened. We should have built hospitals and told the world to come to us and charge the outsiders and make it cheaper for Albertans.
Ironically, Alberta leads the country in the number of patients leaving for the U.S.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. Well, because we're out of time, and because I actually didn't do my homework and actually get a parting shot, we're going to put a pin in it there.
Right.
Dave, Nigel, Corey, thank you very much. And
Thank you.
John, running production, thank you. Thank all of you for joining us today on The Pipeline. We're very grateful for your support. That is, unless you're a freeloader and you're not yet a member of the Western Standard. It's only $10 a month or $100 a year for unlimited access to all Western Standard content. Go to westernstandard.news right now, click on subscribe, join us, and support the work we're doing, and get access to all of it so you can stay up to date. Thank you very much for joining us today, and God bless.